It's the richest, most powerful country in history, a true global superpower. But here's the thing. America's rise to the top was never supposed to happen. It was a total accident, an afterthought, a story that almost ended before it even got started. So how did a massive piece of land, a continent that was dismissed and ignored for 100 years, give birth to a nation that would one day change everything? Well, this is that story, the real, unexpected story of America. You see, when Columbus sailed west, he wasn't looking for new worlds, not at all. He was looking for a shortcut to Asia for spices and gold. The real prize, for him and the Spanish who came after, was all supposed to be somewhere else. So for a solid century, the big European powers saw North America as, well, basically a giant roadblock. It was just in the way of where they really wanted to go. Its story starts not with a bang, but kind of with a shrug. I mean, the contrast is just wild. While the Spanish conquistadors were down south, toppling empires and shipping mountains of gold and silver back home, the explorers who poked around up north found, well, they found trees and rocks. No gold, no spices, so for 100 years they just called it useless lands and pretty much left it alone. So the first people who actually came to stay, they weren't conquerors looking for treasure. They were survivors. Desperate people, really, just trying to carve out a life on the very edge of this huge, unknown wilderness. And their start was, oh man, it was brutal, to say the least. The very first English attempt, the Roanoke colony, just vanished. Poof, gone without a trace. Jamestown barely survived starvation and disease. Then you have the Pilgrims, driven by their faith, who land way off course. It was an absolutely brutal beginning. But from those shaky little footholds, something incredible started to happen. People just kept coming and coming. By 1754, the British colonies were absolutely exploding, with over 1 million people. I mean, they completely dwarfed the French settlements. So you have all these people crammed onto the coast, while France is claiming this huge interior. A conflict wasn't just likely, it was inevitable. So the British won that war. They kicked the French right out of North America. But in their moment of total victory, they accidentally planted the seeds of their own downfall. A new fight was brewing. And this time, it wasn't with an old enemy. It was with their own children. Let's be real, winning a global war is crazy expensive. Britain was flat broke, and when they looked across the ocean at their thriving American colonies, they saw a piggy bank. They decided it was time for the colonists to finally pay up. But the colonists saw things a little differently. They had fought and bled in that war too. They felt like they were helping Britain, not the other way around. And this one simple, powerful question became their rallying cry. It wasn't really just about the money, it was about their rights. So they fought a revolution, and somehow, against all the odds, they won. But freedom, it brought this terrifying new problem. The government they set up was a total disaster. The 13 colonies were acting like 13 separate, selfish little countries. The whole American experiment was about to crash and burn. Out of that mess, they forged a new constitution and a government that, actually worked. And with that fragile new stability, America was about to take some of the biggest gambles in history. $15 million. Napoleon needed cash for his wars in Europe, so America made the deal of a lifetime. They bought a massive chunk of land called Louisiana, and they didn't just get land, they got control of the entire Mississippi River, the economic superhighway of the continent. Just like that, in one single purchase, the United States doubled in size. And that was only the beginning. Oh yeah. Through more purchases, annexation, a war with Mexico, and a deal with Great Britain, the United States just kept pushing west. In only 50 years, a nation that started out on the Atlantic coast now stretched from sea to shining sea. But all of this incredible growth was hiding a deep, dark secret. A poison that had been there from the very beginning, and it was about to tear the nation in two. I mean, how can you compromise on something like this? For many in the North, slavery was a moral cancer that had to be cut out. For the South, it was the absolute bedrock of their entire economy, their whole way of life. There was no middle ground left. The nation was a house divided. When Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860, the South saw the writing on the wall. They saw it as a declaration of war on their way of life. They were convinced he would abolish slavery, so they decided to leave. They would form their own country. The line had been crossed. The Civil War that came next was the bloodiest in American history. Brother against brother, the nation almost tore itself apart. In the end, the North won, the country was put back together, and 4 million people were freed from slavery. But it came at an unthinkable cost, including the life of the president who had saved the Union. But from the ashes of that horrible war, something new, something powerful began to rise. A nation forged in fire, now finally unified. It was powered by this explosion of industry and railroads and immigration. For the first time, America was looking outward, ready to take its place on the world stage. And just look how fast it all happened. It's dizzying. They buy Alaska from Russia, they annex the strategic islands of Hawaii, they go to war with a major European empire, and they build a canal that changes global trade forever. The pace is just breathtaking. That Spanish-American War, that was the real turning point. In just a few months, the United States smashed Spain, a centuries-old empire, and took its last colonies. America was no longer just a nation. It was an empire of its own now. And this is what it means to be a world power. President Theodore Roosevelt, he got it completely. He built the second largest navy on the planet and then opened the Panama Canal to make sure that navy could zip between the Atlantic and Pacific, projecting American power across the entire globe. So by 1914, the transformation was done. The useless lands that Europe had ignored were now a global force to be reckoned with. America had finally, truly arrived, and it arrived at the exact moment the old world was about to set itself on fire. From an accidental discovery to a global titan, a nation born by chance, built by survivors, expanded through wild gambles, and remade by a brutal war. The journey was improbable and bloody. And it leaves us with one last huge question. What would this new power, this accidental empire, do next?